Hi, everyone, and welcome to Decoding Data Analytics. This podcast is all about analytics from the perspective of global data professional. And today we have Thomas Forss. He is the founder of StageZero AI Technologies, who is utilizing AI to solve problems and create value for its clients in various industries. This company is founded in Finland. StageZero offers a range of services, including AI powered predictive analytics, machine learning, data driven decision making to help organizations make better and informed decisions in Europe. And today's topic is also about the impact of AI and data analytics adoption in Europe. Hi, Thomas. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jahanvee, and thank you for having me.
Sure. Would love to know more about you and how exactly you founded Stage Zero.
Sure. I could give a brief background about myself. So my name is Thomas Forss. I'm from Helsinki, and my background is I started out as a software engineer by education, and then moved to data science and did a PhD at Åbo Academy University, focusing mostly on natural language processing, which is something within AI and machine learning, focusing on speech and text processing mainly. And then
Hmm.
I've worked in three different AI companies, and StageZero, the one that I founded together with my brother Niklas, is the third one. And what we are doing is we are an AI data company, so we focus mostly on the data side of AI. And we started the company in 2016. There's sort of an interesting story behind it. We wanted to make games and take AI into games in various ways. And we started out developing games, and then we had this idea for making a technology in games that would require a lot of training data. And then we found this problem that okay, training data is just not available for small companies. It's been quite expensive. And so we tried to solve this for ourselves, like how could we get this data? Uh, and then we came up with this idea, hey, what about if we would use gamers in games to help us with this? And then we took a step back and realized that this is actually a bigger problem that we're solving, not just for ourselves. So then we pivoted our company towards starting providing these services for other companies as well. So data creation and data annotation for machine learning algorithms. And then we've now started focusing more on natural language processing, so speech and text.
Wow, this is really amazing. So, your main clients are from Europe, I would assume?
Yeah, so we have clients right now from Europe, but also from Asia, so from
Okay.
Japan. Uh, but we are also talking to a lot of companies, for example, in India. It seems to be
Oh,
an up and coming market. So
wow. And we are going to talk a lot about AI and analytics in Europe and, what are the challenges and opportunities in there. So yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, first of all, for agreeing for this podcast and, acknowledging it and sharing across with the world how exactly, things are moving ahead in Europe, how technology is being empowering all different countries. So it's going to be really refreshing perspective for our viewers as well.
mhm.
So yeah, we'll start with the first question, which is what are the main drivers for AI and analytics adoption in Europe, according to you?
Right. Uh, yeah, so it kind of depends on the perspective that you're looking at. Uh, I would say sort of in a cynical way, or like if you look at it from the company perspective, it's really about AI in general. It's really about like making workers more efficient,
Hmm.
and through that increasing corporations' profits in a way. That's sort of the capitalistic society that we are living in. And
Hmm.
this actually holds true if you look back at previous things that have happened in history. So AI is called the fourth industrial revolution. you probably knew this, but like the first industrial revolution was steam power. So essentially what happened was steam power started competing with horses and then slowly replacing horses. And it was an efficiency improvement in like transportation and other things. And then the second age or second revolution was the age of science and mass production. So that's what we call the like real industrial revolution, right? So factories starting to mass produce things. And then we had the third digital revolution, which was the internet and moving everything digital, which is not that long ago, like it started in the 80s. And now we have AI coming in and doing another thing, but they have all had sort of the same thing that they've done for corporations, which is increase productivity and yeah, through that then make corporations more efficient. Like I think from a philosophical perspective, I think a lot of people think that okay, with the AI we'll probably get a lot of more free time, but if you look historically at it, that's not what's happened. We have actually become more and more busy. People doing more things with sort of like one person doing the job of three persons with the help of AI. I would assume is what's gonna be happening. Yeah,
Got it.
but then
So what are,
of course,
yeah, sorry.
yeah. But then if you look at it from like a human perspective or like a general public's perspective, it's of course about convenience, like making life easier in various ways.
Mm,
So being able to talk to your phone or getting better search results in your search engine, like finding what you're looking for faster, stuff
mm.
like this. So yeah, convenience.
Yeah, totally. So one thing I want to understand in Europe, what are the main industries who are adopting AI?
So I think all industries right now are moving towards AI. I think that this is like a global trend.
Hmm.
But you can clearly see that there's some that are ahead of the curve. Uh, and I would maybe split it into like looking at different types of companies or like
Mm-hmm.
different types of maybe like different types of machine learning algorithms. So like one industry that's been using AI for a long time that we haven't maybe really seen that much is the search industry. So like Google and
Yeah.
Microsoft and other like having these search engines, they've been using it for probably 20 years almost. And we don't really see it because it's hidden behind. The only thing we see is the improved search results, right?
Yeah.
Unless if you talk about ChatGPT like coming in, like it has like the last few weeks, and I think Microsoft just yesterday announced that they
Yeah.
are integrating ChatGPT into their search engine. So then it's like
Yeah.
a really like a hype moment or like a large step being
Definitely.
taken. Yeah. But if you look at other industries than that, then in computer vision, like what's being utilized there, I think most of the funding and innovation has gone into autonomous driving. So there's
Okay.
again a lot of like really large amounts of capital has been put into self-driving cars. Uh,
Oh.
Google is ahead, of, like still leading there, I would say, but Tesla has put a lot in there, and then there's a lot of other companies and smaller players as well available. Uh, Within speech data, where we now operate quite heavily,
Mm-hmm.
like our main products right now are focused on creating speech data sets for training AI. Within
Oh,
that,
okay.
yeah, within that industry, I would say that there's two sort of industry segments that have been standing out or as like early adopters, and that's
Mm.
finance, like banks, for example. They've been quite ahead of the curve actually for a long time in AI, in not only in speech but in text and in many other things as well, like stock market predictions and so on.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but then the other industry as well is sort of services like call centers. they have a lot of automation that they have been building and improving, like customer service in various ways through call centers. I would say those are the two ahead of the rest, and then the third one that is sort of up and coming is insurance, and
Oh,
then there's different players in every market. There is a different, or every
yeah.
part of the ecosystem there is a different player, but those three I would say which are the ones that stand out right now.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Which domain you feel in Europe has a lot of scope in terms of AI and analytics?
Um, so I think like within Europe, one of the biggest things to solve, if I put it that way, is language related.
Oh,
I know, like it's the same in Asia as well, because and Africa and even Latin America. But if you look at North America or we look at China, they are two quite big markets with essentially just one language.
right.
So, okay, yes, in the US you have also Spanish, but you can serve essentially the whole population or most of the population with English only, which means that it's one large market. And it's the same in China with Mandarin. There's different
Mhm.
languages in China as well, like Cantonese and others, but you can serve like a large majority of the market with just one language. Within Europe and the rest of Asia, Africa, it's not the same. Like you have to serve algorithms that are able to speak different languages to different regions. So like if you're going to do a customer service algorithm in Finland, you'll have to
Mhm.
have it speak Finnish.
Oh,
Uh, if you have a customer service solution in Turkey, it better speak Turkish, right? And that's like one of the problems, at least if I understood the correct question correctly.
wow, that's really interesting because I remember Susan also shared that recently you guys reported out a survey. And in that survey, you asked various questions to data scientists in Europe. And one of the question was, what are the major struggles you feel in this industry? And they shared that the major struggle is that we don't have the data, and another is that we have to create everything in our language so that it can cater to
Yeah.
our audiences. So I feel based on that research as well, this question really aligns because each, especially in Europe and Asian countries, this is very common that each region has a different tone. So you have to cater to that audience in that particular language.
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually like the fundamental problem that we are trying to solve with our company. So if you look at language AI, so computer vision is different because computer vision, like you can solve relatively the same way in every country. But you look at language AIs, there's a fundamental problem that I would say that no one has yet solved, not even the biggest companies, which is
Mhm.
this access to data in different languages. Like if it's text, like search data, or if it's chatbot data, or if it's speech data, like voice recognition
Right.
and voice assistants. It's just the problem is the same. There's an access to data problem, and the survey that we made, as you mentioned, so it's in it we got the response from across Europe that 92% of companies are having issues with access to data. So it's like a very widespread problem. And yeah, and that's the area that we are working in, and I think no one else has been able to solve this before us. And our technology seems to be working exactly for this.
Wow, that's really commendable. Moving on to the next question, it would be like a extension to this. So based on the research and the research you have done for the survey as well, would love to know what are the challenges that companies are facing in Europe when it comes to implementing AI or analytics.
Yeah. So and there's a bunch of challenges in the AI industry, especially within Europe. And I think like one of the big ones is legislation. I think everyone across the globe within this industry have heard about GDPR by now. So that's one of the legislations. But then there's a new one coming up as well, which is the AI Act, European AI Act. So a lot of companies do see that like following GDPR and its practices, like they don't say that it's a major concern, but they have some concerns about it. And what it comes down to, I would say, in practice, is that you really need to consult a lawyer often to be able to make sure that your AI development is following the practices, unless you are an GDPR and AI legislation expert yourself. But then we have the upcoming AI Act, which is it's a new thing. It's not been released yet, but I can give a brief summary of what that's about. So the new AI Act will be categorizing models provided by companies and people into 4 different risks. So it's sort of a risk-based approach. So there's the highest risk is called unacceptable risk. So it means like there's a ban on harmful and manipulative AIs, and I think that's good for everyone. So, for example, like social scoring is going to be banned within the EU once that's out. The second risk is called high risk, which covers a lot of things. So an AI algorithm or an AI system will be high risk if it's, for example, able to identify people, like facial recognition, or if it's has a potential to hurt people. So that's like self-driving cars, like can crash and so on. And for companies that do those things, then they're going to have to be in a sort of register so that they can be followed and make sure that they are following the correct practices for it. The third option or the third risk is limited risk, such as, and then into this category, we have chatbots, emotion recognition, and also for some reason, deep fakes, which is, in my mind, I would maybe have put it into the high risk category, but then again, I don't know. Let's see how it turns out, but it's the one that stood out to me that I would maybe be a higher risk than limited. And then there's the fourth category is like almost essentially no risk. But like for breaking this upcoming AI Act, there's going to be fines of up to 6% of total annual worldwide revenue. So it's like a massive thing for a large company if they break it. But for small companies, maybe it's not that much. But still, it's like adding, in a way, complexity to something that's already quite complex. But I think it's a good step. But let's see how it develops, because there's a risk that different regions will have different legislation. And if you come to that point that, for example, Europe has legislation of one kind and US has like contradictory legislation, or maybe India has, or China has a contradictory legislation, then we are having problems, because then companies will have to develop different solutions for different regions, and that's going to be painful. So let's hope it doesn't come to that. But some other challenges as well that we've seen in Europe is data. So, for example, different countries have different requirements. So, for example, collecting data from different groups of people is different in different regions. So, by legislation, it's like the youngest a person can be, you can collect data from, is different in Finland compared to in other countries in Europe. So that's something that sort of can make it hard as well to know like which ones do you follow or not. Yeah. Finally, about data, I guess, when it comes to natural language processing, so you want to service the customer in your native language, as we already sort of discussed. but it means that you also have to build models then for each language. Like it's you have to collect data for each language and you have to build models for each language. And it's not cheap. Like training a model is not cheap. It can cost, in certain cases, up to hundreds of thousands of USD or euros to train. And this, of course, causes smaller languages to be left behind when it comes to like implementation of new models in different languages, because companies look at what's the return on investment on delivering this model. So if it's a company the size of Finland, where we have a little bit more than 5 million people, then it's likely that that will be like models or services for that will be developed later than for a larger country, like, for example, Spain or Germany.
So, you mentioned a lot about legislation and GDPR. For our audience, can you just give like a quick brief of what that is about, and how the data governance, play a major role in Europe while collecting the data?
Yeah, so GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, and it's like the first large legislation of its kind related to data privacy and like the rights of people when it comes to data ownership and data being deleted and so on. But it's sort of spread across the globe now, so there's not exactly the same legislation in different regions, but most of them are based on the same principles. So they are sort of similar, but maybe less tough in some regards. So GDPR is about like what's your rights as a person to data, and what are the like responsibilities from companies to tell you about what they are doing with the data, and how can they, for example, store the data, where can they store it, who can they share the data with, and what can they do with the data. And they have to inform you about essentially all of these things in something called a privacy policy. Yeah, so the way that we resolve this is we have sort of a process for handling GDPR. So we created, actually, there's a blog post on our website about our, I think, 8-step process for it. So if you're interested, you can go and check the website for that. But in short, what it's about is first to make sure that anyone that provides us with data do it voluntarily. So we don't collect data of anyone that doesn't want to share data with us. And we usually, for the people that collect data for us, we give them something in return. So it can be then like virtual currency or they are paid for it in certain cases. So what we need to be able to do that is, like, we need to have consent or a contract to be able to collect data. That's sort of the first step of GDPR. And then whenever we enter a new vertical for like processing data, what we do is we consult our lawyers, because there's different types of data within GDPR that has different restrictions. So there's something called like biometric data, which is essentially like your fingerprint. Even your voice can be considered biometric data, but also like your facial data, like used for facial recognition. These things are biometric data. So if we would want to process something of that, we need to go through like this process to make sure that everything we do is legal, and like that we're storing data in the right way, and that we are informing people about how their data is being used and stored and processed. And then, of course, we, as a data company, we process data, and then we make it into like AI training data. Like we have a principle within the company that we don't work on anything that, for example, can identify a person. So it's just something that we don't do facial recognition, and we don't do like person recognition based on voice. It's a decision we have made. It's like an ethics decision. And then what we do is that to be able to process or sell data to a customer, we have to have a data processing agreement, and that's the same for any company that operates in Europe. So if you are going to use a service, or you're going to have a service that provides something based on data collected from the European economic region, so it's not only EU, but also a few other countries that are sort of part of the European economic area. So if you have data collected from those, then you have to process that data within the EU, or you have to have agreements with whoever processes that data, that they also process it according to the GDPR. And if you have those agreements, then you can share data with each other, either for processing purposes or for like ownership purposes.
Got it. That's why in the research as well, a lot of data scientists have shared that the major struggle they deal with is to get the training data processed, because they can't share with the third machine. So they have to run it on some server. That's also one of the complication, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of customers, especially customer or like companies within certain sectors like banking, finance, healthcare, have restrictions, also insurance, have restrictions on how they can share data. So there's a lot of, for example, healthcare data that is not allowed to be shared outside a country's borders. So that means that there, for example, you can't even use like Google services to process that data because their servers are located maybe in Germany or maybe in Netherlands or somewhere. So if you're not in that country, then some data can't even be processed by these systems, and you would have to have a local provider or a local server somehow running. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much for explaining everything in such a detailed order. Moving on to the next question, you mentioned that the biggest thing which you are solving is through language. So can you just give, a one case study or one example of your client through which you helped using the language barrier and it helped the company in a certain way? Because we realize that, language is one of the
Mhm.
major problem, but how exactly you are providing a solution that is helping company in, multiple folds in revenue or,
Yeah.
expanding the business?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I'm glad to help give some visibility to one of our customers. So I think the perfect company to talk about here is German Auto Labs. So it's a company that's developing voice assistants for different types of services. So, for example, the case that we have been helping work on is delivery drivers. So they have a voice assistant that enables delivery drivers to do things using voice that they otherwise would have to maybe open up a computer or like do some extra work on the side. So it speeds up their work, and they get to, I guess, be more efficient in their work and deliver more packages. And the way it works is that, for example, the delivery driver would be delivering a package to a person, comes up to their door, and then they realize that, okay, maybe the door is locked. I can't get in. So maybe the person then doesn't answer the phone. So what do they have to do? Well, then they would have to send some information to this person about it, and now they can do it then using this German Auto Labs voice assistant. So they just tell the voice assistants in their own way, like however that person would say that, hey, this door is closed, I couldn't deliver it. Can you send an email to the person saying that the door was closed, that deliver it again later or something. And yeah, so we've been working with them now for more than a year. And we've worked on now several different languages to help them deliver these systems. So English and German, as the name says, German labs. And now we're also looking into a few others like Romanian. Yeah.
Wow, these are really interesting insights. Moving on to the next question, uh, really want to understand how, companies are integrating AI and data analytics into their existing systems, because not every company would be, a data company, as you said, and
Mhm.
collecting data is really a huge task in Europe. So how companies are, adopting AI analytics into their existing system and businesses?
Right. So there's different ways of doing it. But essentially, most companies start by looking at what data do we already have. So, for example, in banking, they have some data in the system. Uh, and when they look at the data, they see, okay, this could be useful. But then quite often they realize that actually we don't have the permission to use this data in any way right now. Because they haven't thought about AI development once they started collecting the data before. So usually what then happens is the company needs to start changing their own ways of collecting data to be able to get that initial data. Uh, that can take quite a long time, of course. So what they sometimes then have to do is, or like another option is to work with a partner in some way to collect data. Uh, so we can, for example, help companies within speech and text to collect data. And we do this by having then different people in our technology to, for example, create synthetic data for a use case. So if you're talking about, for example, a banking use case, we have right now in our technology, we have 110 million people that are integrated. By the way, that's like the largest crowd of all our competitors within the NLP space. And we can ask them to then provide data that these customers can use. So, for example, if they would want to automate a banking system, like phone system where people call in with problems, then they could send us the different problems that people are facing, and then say, hey, could you collect us data for this so we could get started with creating these algorithms. And that's really what we do. Then we look at the different use cases and define what type of data are they looking for. Okay, it is within banking, so then we have a set of different things that can happen in a bank. Like people lose their cards, people need to, I don't know, order a new card, or maybe they need to send some money abroad or stuff like this. And then we need to find data or like get access to data for all of those cases that would like how would a real person say this if they call you on the phone, for example. So that's the data we then collect for them. Uh,
Yeah.
then there's a third option as well, which is sort of synthetic data. And that's something that uh, it's getting more prevalent. Like there's more and more companies creating synthetic data, but it's mostly from our survey that what we have noticed, it's mostly like the high performers or the ones that have gotten quite far already that are using that approach, because synthetic data is mostly used, as far as I've seen it, to augment an existing system. So you know that it's doing well at something, but then it's doing not so well at something else. And you have problems getting data for this use case where it's doing like outputting the wrong thing. So then you can use synthetic data for that. And yeah, in text it's more easier to create synthetic data, and in computer vision it's rather easy as well. But in speech it's not that easy. But then you can use a system like ours to collect synthetic data from real people. So it's essentially like having people act out a situation then instead.
Because of there, since there are so many regulations and the cost of acquiring the data is also very high, do you think companies in Europe specifically are interested in investing in AI and analytics?
Um, yeah, I think it's sort of it's something that pays off in the long run. I'd say it's not only interesting; it's actually a matter of survival for a lot of companies. Some companies might not know it yet, but
Yeah.
it's like if you don't invest in data analytics and AI now, you likely won't exist 10 years from now. It's actually that important, in my opinion. And we can see this. We briefly talked about ChatGPT and other things, but we can see how fast the different like leading companies started acting as soon as OpenAI dropped a new version of their chat algorithm. Microsoft invested 10 billions into them, and like 2 weeks later, they have a new version of their search engine out. And then you can see like Facebook and Google sort of panicking because it's like they can see that they will be losing this like business if they don't do something similar. So they also announce like just 1 day later that okay, we are also doing this thing, and it's like uh, I don't know, like the
Data
acceleration of
monopoly.
adoption is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's a emerging trend, I would say, in Europe, which is going to adapt quickly to AI and analytics as of now. We are almost towards the end. Only two questions are left. So, as you already know that there's some friction going on in US market and Indian market as well related to recession. So, just wanted to
Mhm.
understand the impact of analytics on job market and workforce in Europe as of now.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I think everyone's seen that all the big companies have been letting people go, like a lot of people. I think Amazon had like 18,000 and Microsoft, Google, Facebook around 10,000 plus minus some
Yeah.
a few thousand. Uh, but like if you look at the data analytics, like data scientist market, like job market for these people, I think it's actually unchanged compared to before. So even if you look at all the 18,000 let go by Amazon, I think that there's a very small part of that that would be the data scientists or the data analytics workforce. The research I've done into what type of people have been let go in that side is it's mostly about recruiters, it's about HR personnel, and to some extent retail people. Uh,
Okay.
I would say data scientists, data engineers, ML ops experts, and also software developers in general have been quite largely unaffected. Uh,
Okay.
and at least I'm still seeing here in Europe, uh, like most of the consultancy companies that I know, they are still like, they have like open hiring for all roles still. There's like almost no difference as far as I'm concerned. There, this maybe should be prefaced with this can change within the next 3 months. Like if it goes uh, to like a worse direction from here, then it probably will change. But so far, I would say the tech side of it hasn't really been affected that much. You have to consider like the big companies, the way that they did or the way that they do hiring is that they look at each other quite a lot, like how are we hiring compared to our
Yeah.
competitors, and then they hire a lot. I think was it so that Amazon hired in 2021 more people than they let go in 2022. So they are
Nice.
still like not below 2021 levels even. So it's like even one year backwards. Uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of companies do it like that. They overhire when it's like good times, and then they quite early cut out the people, then we, on the other hand, we don't do that. We try to fit the right people to the right role so that we would always have the people we need, and that means also that we don't then fire people willy-nilly. Yeah.
And an extension to the similar question. So how's the hiring process in Europe specifically for, data and machine learning? Do they hire from different countries, or they try to majorly focus and recruit from their native cities or regions?
I think it depends a little bit on the company culture. So I can say from experience that I know that there are, like, especially like companies that speak, for example, Finnish in the like as the main language. They
Mhm.
often also need then to hire Finnish speakers or Finnish people because everything they have, every material is in Finnish. But I would say like the more modern companies, like new companies, new startups, more tech companies have moved towards having everything in English, as we do as well. So all our material is English. All like calls are in English. And I think right now we have people from 4 different continents in our company. Uh, but a lot of companies are moving towards that as well. So even you don't even have to be in the same region anymore. And I think that's something that if we want to look at something positive that came from COVID, then I think that that's one of those things that you can have. You can have people working remotely, and more companies trust that. So it makes sense to hire for talent or hire for the best fit instead of just someone that speaks the language.
Definitely. So how's the hiring process at StageZero, since you will be more accomplished to speak about that? And what
Yeah,
all skill set you look for in a candidate while hiring?
right. So we have, I would say, a very modern culture in our company. So what I mean with that is that we have a very flat hierarchy. Expected to come up with ideas on how to do this the best way. So it's not like me, the CEO, telling them what to do, but it's like we have a group of people saying that this is what we're trying to achieve, and then the team has to be able to. We are looking for people that can work on their own, like very independently, but also work well in teams. So that can contribute with ideas and can help solve problems. Like problem solvers and independent people are what we're looking for. And then usually it's easier always for a candidate to come into a company if they have like a relevant background, relevant experience, like education and several years of work. I mean, we hire mostly seniors because of this um, modern culture that we have, that people have to be independent, because juniors usually need someone to help them more than a senior has. And in a startup like us,
Yeah.
we we need people that can contribute fast and have like a lot of things that they can help with. So that sort of naturally means that we hire mostly seniors. But
Got
yeah,
it.
so we look for independent people, but then of course highly skilled people and highly motivated people as well. Yeah, and what we usually do is we have I think 3 different interviews. One interview is like for technical capabilities. One interview is like how well do you fit into the team that you would go to work in. So that means that
Mhm.
you would not talk only with the person that you are uh, like not only the recruiter but also with the team, so that they get a feel for you. And then usually there is like like follow-up interview to dig more into some things that we have noticed during the first 2 calls.
Got it. So you mentioned that, it's you are looking for problem solvers and seniors. So, for someone to be a senior, they have to go through a certain path, right, to reach at that stage. So for anyone, watching this podcast, admiring to be, part of Europe, any consulting company, your company, how can they be, tech stack ready? So what all technologies they should invest in,
Mhm.
or I would say what all skill set they should acquire to, be at that senior level position, because they have to start from zero, right?
Yeah,
So what all skill set they should acquire in, 2023 to, be at that point?
yeah. So it depends on like if you're a programmer and or aspiring to be a programmer, then I think especially within data science, I think Python is the language to learn, and within Python, uh, PyTorch has become like the thing that researchers use, and in extension, the things that researchers use is the one thing that then becomes used by everyone else, because the field is moving so fast that like whatever is used today is probably not used 2 years from now. So you have to take that into account. You learn one technology, and then you sort of need to prove that you can learn the new technologies. So instead of getting like stuck in just one thing, the thing to do in data science is to be good at learning new things. So new
Yeah.
learning frameworks, learning new things. Right now it's PyTorch that's the most important thing there, but there's many other frameworks as well, like Skikit-learn and other things that people used to start out with. Mm. But then usually companies also work in some other language. So we work, for example, in C# as a
Okay.
backend programming language, but a lot of companies still work in Java and C++.
Yeah.
So I think those three are the ones that are mainly used. Some companies have started moving on to Rust as well. Uh, yeah. Then I think like just if you want to be within machine learning, it's about building prototypes, showing that you understand things. So building out your own, for example, Git repository with a few different example projects where you do something. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be super complex, but like having, for example, one or two showcase things you have done yourself shows initiative. That's something we look for, and a lot of modern companies look for. Um, just being able to show that you are very interested in a field will take you quite far, I think. Yeah.
And thank you so
Thanks.
much, Thomas, for, taking time out and sharing your perspective towards the AI adoption in Europe, and also so many things about your company as well. It was really inspiring and insightful.
Thank you, Jahanvee. It was really great to be on the podcast. Then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, if you like the podcast, do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more episodes.